Well, how you doing today? It's a bright early morning for me, September 12th, and well, I'm reflecting on a conversation I had with someone. It was a high priestess, Gardnerian type person. When I was forming my church, she looked at me and said, and she was very smug about it. She goes, "So what do we have in common?" And it pissed me off because the level of narrow-mindedness and arrogance is what I see in a lot of different paradigms. But she was right. What do we have in common? I come up with my own formula. We're all cultists in a wide variety of field. Because we practice what we practice, we're outcast of a common belief system, or systems, all depending on where you're from. And with a certain heightened level of consciousness or self-awareness, we do and can get along with one another if we choose to do so. So that wasn't my answer back then. I bit my tongue, my head turned red, and I was about to tell this lady to go fuck off, because let's just face it, it wasn't the question, it was how she asked it. Because in another conversation I had not too long ago with a person who happened to be a Gardnerian as well, over the internet, she became eclectic and a solitary practitioner. And I made a comment that actually reflected this original conversation, and that was, belonging to a singularity or a tradition or a church of any kind, it's not a bad thing if you start off with that to learn it. But I think you truly grow when you do things on your own. But that's just my opinion. Some people become what's called a traditionalist, and that can be anywhere. Wicca, pagan, if there's a pagan tradition, left-hand path, that kind of thing. And when you do a tradition or become a traditionalist, well, that's fine. You just put the blinders on because you're staying within this certain parameter of your singularity. So when you do that, sometimes people get arrogant. And I think that's what pissed me off about this particular lady, was her arrogance. Because if you were sitting in a round circle with her, it was her way of doing things or no way of doing things. And this was supposed to be an eclectic group. And this is the group that I later just walked away from and got kicked out at the same time, because objectivity does not prevail in a bubble of emotional midgets. So what do we have in common? I think we have in common is our own form of diversity. And our social constructs are very similar. To a degree, of course. But let's just say, we're always in our best behavior to a point. But sometimes when we go in our best behavior, I find that we all go and we lie to ourselves, and then sometimes at each other. So when I call out that something's fucked up, I can easily become a bad guy to a particular situation where a person might be acting like a psychic vampire. So it all depends on perspective. And that's where I think I rely on, is the perspective of different people that would have a shared perspective. And if you have a shared perspective, then people get to understand one another quickly. That's why when I started Access Sanctuary and Chapels, I had to create a paradigm of a particular paradigm of universalists, where everybody's path is their own, and to adopt the philosophy of the coexist, where there's religious tolerance through education. The funny part was, people said, "Well, you're not coexisting." I said, "No, you're just being an asshole." And I had to put in the words or of the definitions of what universalist coexist means, is people are trying to call you out. You know, like, oh, you're not coexisting. No, I'm coexisting pretty well. You find your religion pretty interesting, but you're just an asshat. That kind of stuff. And then a lot of people aren't used to that kind of conversation. They're not used to being called out by someone who might know about their belief system. They don't know how to handle that because they were never challenged. I get challenged, not with my own paradigm, or not with the church's paradigm, but they'll just challenge you in general. And the funny thing is, when people do and they fail, all they can resort to is ad hominems. So when that happens, I know, you know, the little checkered flag comes up. I won whatever I won, you know, a topic, an issue. Anytime you have people out there who claim to know something and don't, that's always easy to point out, especially if you already know it. And if you know 10% of a lot, you know more than most people know in their lifetime. That's the funny part. Or to simply take the initiative and look it up. So when people ask, what do we have in common? I think we do have a lot in common. I'm also looking back on a post I just did, talking about going out in the community and start lecturing. Because how do you get a room? You know, you can't say I'm going to do a church service, especially the type of church that I created. Some places they'll allow you to do it, but you know they're expecting a lot of people showing up. I'll have anywhere between 1 and 10 people show up. I'll have at the flea market, I'll have like anywhere from 1 or 2 conversations. And I'll just spend all day talking. I'll have to have a gallon of water next to me. It all depends on how things turn around in the world and universe, right? But when I was looking at lecturing, I found that if you break down the full aspects of like the well over 60 religions that I've been promoting, is the social issues among religions. So when I go off to lecture, I mean I could talk about almost anything, but I figure if there's going to be a topic of a lecture, it would be the social constructs, contrast, and similarities of the multi-paradigm. To simplify it, how people get along of other different religions. And that's where I think where I'll be going with my public lectures. So one that can be so-called a lecture. It's not necessarily, you know, a particular faith or whatever. I might also combine that with what's ever on my mind that day. Usually I'm not without topic. So anyways, if you're on my Facebook, feel free to drop in a suggestion or two. If you're on my YouTube, you can't write a goddamn thing down because I won't let you. Don't want you to. And what else we got? Well, that's about it. So, and of course, you know about my own personal group called The World According to Rev.Ronald French, which is also down here as well. So, that's about it. And I'll be out publicly speaking once again. And that'll be like at night at the libraries, public libraries. They book you. You can't get a room or a break room or a meeting room type of thing without being a tax-exempt organization, which I happen to be with my church. And I also have, and again, I'm trying to get my act together. I need to build some displays and get the right fixtures ready so I can go off and do the flea market again. Because I went from a little umbrella to a 10 by 20 foot carport size tent now. And so I get some displays to get and some really large tent anchor spikes I have to get. And then, boom, I'm set for the day. And I'll have another 20 or 30 foot high flag flying with the coexist symbol. So it would be a really interesting time. So I'm trying to get that started again because, you know, I've been going to school, and I figured I'd get my act together and get back out there again. You know, I need my main purpose is to obviously go to school, get educated, get a job. But the other one is to promote Access Sanctuary and Chapels, and to let the community know what I'm trying to establish and create. So yeah, that's what's going on. That's the update. So anyways, so yeah, this is about how we have similarities, what our differences are. You know, going out to lecture and going back out in public and meeting people. That's always fun. Even when the ones that don't like you, that's called entertainment. I haven't been entertained in a while. Time to get out. It's actually more entertaining or even fun, or more funnier when you deal with people like this in public rather than the internet. The internet, you're a keyboard jockey. Your real skill is with a tongue in front of the person that's standing 2 feet in front of you. That's the real debate, if you would. That's the real, you know. And I love it. It's not fisticuffs. It's just a battle of the wits or minds. Because I've had people out there who, they're stuck in their paradigm, see what you're up to, and then they go, you're not part of what I do. And then they don't know how to really handle themselves, but they know they're going to be polite about it. But you can see they're just twitching as they're talking. It is humorous. I like to film some of this stuff someday to show you guys what I deal with in the public, how I deal with the public as well. Because how do we deal with such conflicts of ideology? See, so there's a lot to talk about, you know. So yeah, I appreciate your time. I'll catch you later. Bye for now.